Ranking the most streamed albums on Spotify of all time from worst to best. Yes, I'm undergoing quite the mammoth-sized task. I've been listening to a bunch of albums in the Spotify Top 100 of all time over the past few days. Some that I wanted to return to, some that I haven't ever listened to before, and I finally compiled a list, worst to best, of all of the albums in this top 100. A couple of things to mention before we get into this. This is obviously just my opinion. This is no objective list. I think there is some general consensus with some of the rankings here, but of course there is no objectivity here. I'm just telling you my opinion. These are how I would list these albums. And secondly as well, I want to mention that I've excluded soundtrack albums just because I think you need the context of the film for you to be able to understand the music. They're not the same as studio albums. I've took those ones out. They don't seem to be worth keeping in, and I've bumped them out for whatever was like 101, 102, 103, etc. onto this list as well instead. Many of these albums will surprise you. I think you will be very shocked to see some of the albums here. It's very 2010s biased because obviously that's when streaming really took off, and we're still letting those albums linger on. A lot of them have been forgotten. A lot of them do not get talked about at all now. It's quite an odd list, but I think streaming is still very young and we kind of have to see it age a little bit more for these lists to make more sense than they do right now, because honestly, man, I'm baffled. But yeah, let's get into it. I've wasted too much time. Hopefully you enjoy this. Let's go. Sitting at the very bottom of this list, in hell, is Maroon 5. Truly one of the worst bands of all time. Maps, Animals are hideous. They are not enjoyable to listen to at all. This is some of the worst pop music you'll ever hear. Maroon 5, what did we do to let them stay as popular as they did for as long as they did? Why? Awful music, man. Shocking that they are in this list multiple times. Why? Why? And at 99, unsurprisingly, yes, you guessed it, it's Maroon 5 again. No, man, I'm not having it. Not having it. This is awful. No. At 98, I do have Lewis Capaldi, who I have spoken about before, and he has seen my review of his album here. I'm not trying to pile a hate train onto him. He's obviously a very beloved singer, but for me, I do not get it. His voice to me is awful. The writing is generic as it could possibly get. I don't get it. I don't get it, man. It's really painfully dire and drab music to sit through. I think there are just like 100 singer-songwriters that are far more captivating and far more interesting than Lewis Capaldi. Also a potential contender for one of the worst bands. They're not as bad as Maroon 5, and this actually isn't one of their worst albums. If you listen to the album immediately after this one, which came out in 2018, you're in for a treat. That one is absolutely shocking, but still, Evolve for me, Thunder, Believer, I never understood the hype for those songs. I just find this to be like really bottom of the barrel rock music. I just don't get it. Another incredibly successful artist that I do not understand is Ed Sheeran. Number 6 collaborations project I just find to be not enjoyable for a pop album. All of the pop crossovers, the attempts on here just feel very like jumping on trends of the time, and it just hasn't aged well, and honestly was dead on arrival. Like, he should not be anywhere near Stormzy or Camila Cabello. There is just no chemistry with those types of artists whatsoever there, and we just seem to let anybody make their way into this top 100 multiple times. Ed Sheeran has like 5 albums on this list. It's ridiculous. And as well, Divide is really not good in my opinion either. Shape of You is one of the worst pop songs ever to me. I think the lyrics on there are really bad. I think the attempts again at some of these pop crossovers are really not good. The Irish attempt on Galway Girl is honestly embarrassing. The only real redeeming quality I would say is Castle on the Hill, which is why I would rank this higher than number 6 collaborations, whatever it is. I've got Justin Bieber next, who I find to be generally okay. I don't actually hate a lot of his music, but Justice was like really boring, and some of the interludes on this were really cringe too. I just find there to be no melodies whatsoever going through this album. I'm just again surprised at this being so high up. At 93, I've got Morgan Wallen, who I think adds very little to the country genre, really. It's kind of like the new version of what bro country was in the 2010s. Really generic lyrics about whiskeys and girls. I find this painful. And why is it so long? Why does he do 30-track albums every time? I am once again asking, why does he do 30-track albums every time? And at 91, I've got XXXTentacion, who I've actually admired to some degree through some of his tracks before, but question mark left me with questions. I found a lot of the lyrics and the sentiments and the ideas behind his writing really odd and awkward and really bad, honestly, on tracks like Sad. There's some okay moments on here, but I am not really a fan of this overall. It feels, as some of his other work does, very unfinished. Yeah, not for me. Number 90, I'm a little bit more generous to this Maroon 5 album, as I did rank the other two albums right at the bottom of this list. But this one still ranks low. It's still bad, but you know what? I guess I don't hate What Lovers Do as much as I do other Maroon 5 songs, so it's a little higher up, I guess. Take that for what you will, Maroon 5. This guy actually has a lot of talent. If you watch his TikToks, he really knows how to break down music production and music mixing and engineering and all that kind of stuff. He's really talented. And he used his talent for evil. This is an evil man right here. He has all the talent that you could possibly want for a pop star. And he made Marvin Gaye. He made Let's Marvin Gaye and Get It On. That this is what he chose to do with his powers. I'll never forgive him. Yeah, Anne Marie is in the top 100 all time on Spotify. We're just letting anybody at the table, man. What? How did this make it so high? I know there were a couple of popular songs, but did they carry this album that much to have her in the top 100 of all time? What are we doing? A blatant attempt to game the system right here, man. This is what the streaming era has done for record labels and artists. He's like clustered together 3 separate albums and put it into one. He just kept releasing new albums and just putting it all into the same thing, and it's ended up becoming one of the most streamed albums ever. It's ridiculous, man. There's very little here that you're going to check out and be impressed by. Again, another artist I don't quite understand the insane hype that seems to be attached to them. There's like one solid song, and that's Stay with Justin Bieber. That's it. The turning point for Drake in terms of his commercial success, but in terms of what he was willing to do to game the system and just really do anything to chart high hits. Some of the culture vulture behaviors start to show up on this album. The whining, the moaning, the really terrible relationship drama type songs, the absolute padding of tracks that are completely unnecessary just to game the streaming system. This is the man that changed the game forever, because he found all these different tactics to have as many streams as he possibly could to gain as much success and break as many records as he could. It completely means that the album suffers. There's so many songs that I just do not care about on this album. Yeah, it was a sign of the times changing. Just like with Scorpion, really, all of those same things exist on this album too. It's just slightly better and has better hits for me. I don't mind God's Plan, I don't mind Nice for What, but yeah, all of the same things, just completely padded out track lengths. It's just way too long. Who sits through this entire thing from front to back? Seriously, how? The whining, the bitching, the relationship petty dramas he throws in. He just lost the beef to Pusha T, so there's loads of sneak dissing on this album as well. Just all of the qualities that have made Drake dislikable for a long time that were way before the beef with Kendrick. Like, people were already pointing these things out. Not really into it, man. Drake never really did it for me when it comes to full album experiences. Her vocals, not as good as you remember. There is some terrible singing on this album, like Alive, and many of the tracks on this album, she is borderline screeching, honestly. This is not aging well. I used to think Sia was actually one of the better, quote-unquote, better pop stars, but that has aged terribly. This is not good. One thing you will notice about a lot of these albums is that one or maybe two or maybe three at the most songs carry these albums into the top 100 of all time. Look no further than the Chainsmokers. Closer is on this EP, so you guessed it, this is in the top 100 of all time, basically just because of that song, and maybe one other song as well. We left these guys in the dust. If you type in Collage on Apple Music or Spotify, the first thing that comes up is The College Dropout by Kanye West. It's spelled differently to Collage, but that is how irrelevant these guys are nowadays. How they're still in the top 100, I will never know. I've kind of already given you my thoughts on Ed Sheeran. Everything I've said about the pop crossovers and stuff like that doesn't work for me. The ballads don't work. I guess you could say I just do not like Ed Sheeran, really. And at 91, I'm actually not much of a One Direction hater. You might think, oh, stereotypical of dudes trying to speak on a popular fan base that have mostly girls. I actually don't mind most of their hits, but this album from front to back is really quite bad. Apart from Night Changes, there's not much to latch onto here. At number 80, we have Certified Lover Boy, which is a title that is unfortunately attached to a very different meaning now because of Kendrick Lamar. Everybody say thank you, Kendrick. But yeah, I guess in reality, this isn't technically worse than Scorpion or Views, which I have ranked lower. But I think my expectations for 2020's Drake are just very different now. Like, I was expecting this to be bad. Those albums I wasn't expecting to be bad. So they're like worse in my mind because that was prime Drake. Drake shouldn't have been dropping songs like Ratchet Happy Birthday in his prime. But in 2021, I expect Drake to make girls want girls. That is just who he is now. It's bad, I guess. Again, technically, it's worse than those ones, but yeah, it's more of my expectations. He's Drake. He's gonna make songs about doing his fans. Yes, there is a song about doing his fans on this album. Like, that's just who he is now. It's still bad though, but yeah, I don't know, man. What is this album cover to? Jesus. At 79, we do have one of the more perplexing pop stars of the 2010s. I do not see what the appeal of this man is at all. He did the typical tactic as well, of where he threw on deluxe tracks to boost the streams. So the only reason this is in the top 100 is quite literally because of Senorita, which he added on later on. I'm not a fan of these tactics. This album would be way lower if you took those streams away. And the actual quality of the music here is really poor. This guy hasn't got any interesting writing abilities. He isn't really that good at making a pop tune either. I don't get it. We hopefully have started to leave him behind because his last couple of albums have not done well at all. But yeah, he is still lingering in that top 100 with this one. As with this one too, basically everything I just said there applies because again, he did a deluxe edition where he added There's Nothing Holding Me Back, which boosted the streams as well. If you took that song away, this wouldn't be anywhere near. These tactics are clever, guys, but I see through them. The definition of oversharing, and honestly, I think Taylor Swift has basically near enough admitted that this album is that now in that interview she did recently. But yeah, just way too many padded out lyrics that aren't very interesting, aren't really that engaging unless you're a hardcore Swiftie. I don't think anybody outside her fandom really has let this album leave much of a mark on them. It's remarkable how big her fandom is, though, that this album is so popular, but it's only popular with those fans. She's in a really interesting position with this album. But yeah, for me personally, I just find it really boring, find it really dry. Her production choices with Jack Antonoff have really hit a wall now. He's a good producer, but you wouldn't think it listening to this album. One of those other types of artists that felt very big for their time, but have really passed their moment now, and their hardcore fan base is still very dedicated, but I just don't really feel like you'd come across many people that love this album. The singles I'm still not a big fan of. I think Stressed Out's decent. I like the narrative and the lyrics on that track. But Ride, we do not need to let white people do reggae. There are too many tracks on this album where they are blending genres that they really shouldn't be blending. And it sounds pretty gawky and garish and really awkward. He also is a terrible rapper too. Yeah, no, I'm not having it. Speaking of terrible rappers, we let Post Malone get away with this for too long. And Hollywood's Bleeding is actually 6th all time on the Spotify streamed chart. Sixth. This is the sixth most streamed album ever. Insane when you think of it like that. But Post Malone, for me, never really did it as a hip hop head. He's now shifted to country because I guess he's bored of rap now. Very definition of a culture vulture. I actually think some of the best songs on this album were the ones that weren't doing hip hop and just kind of just doing pop, like Circles. But yeah, I don't need to be sitting through a Post Malone album, man. I can't do it. I get the appeal for maybe a certain age range for this artist Juice WRLD here. Maybe I'm just slightly outside that age range. I can appreciate some of his music, which we will get to on this list, of course, later on. But yeah, I don't really see it with Death Race for Love. And I'm not here for the revisionism of this is like a misunderstood album. It isn't, man. It isn't. The production at times is really cheap and sounds really, really bad on songs like Endgame or even Ready for It, which is trying to be like this epic song, which I think really fails. Look What You Made Me Do, I think is pretty corny as well. I think that whole rebel thing she was trying didn't really land. How? This is how? I'll take Lush Life. Lush Life is good. But, like, how is this in the top 100? This is like Anne Marie again. Like, how? Maybe my most controversial opinion, I don't know though, because people love Bruno Mars and have a lot of nostalgia for this album. But this era of Bruno, man, I don't like it, man. Count on Me, Just the Way You are super corny, super sappy, super blech, like icky sounding songs to me. I think his writing's really cheap. I think his singing isn't. It's good. It's technically good, but I think the way he uses his voice, he just hadn't found his groove at this point. It was way better later on, and I just am not really here for this era of Bruno. Man, I'm really glad he started to kind of find the funk, the soul, all that 70s stuff, because I really can't believe there was a point where he was making songs like this. I've spoke my piece already on him. Not really the biggest fan of what he was doing, particularly when he was kind of like trying to do hip hop, and I don't think he was particularly very good at it. One or two songs on here that I think are okay, better than Hollywood's Bleed. Again, spoke my piece on Ed Sheeran. I think this is actually one of his better albums, but still not really keen on it. I think there are more songs on here that I would actively listen to than most of his other albums, Don't being a good example. But yeah, he still slips into those cheesy, ballady type stuff that I don't find very engaging or interesting. Still quite perplexed by how big he is compared to the actual quality of music he puts out. But I don't know, man. I feel like I'm pretty alone in that opinion. People love this guy, especially in the UK. 68, we got Pop Smoke, perhaps a little controversial because this guy's very beloved, but I'm not the biggest fan of drill, and I don't think his iteration of drill was ever that special, honestly, either. Not quite sure why this album is so popular compared to other artists in this field, really. Actually, a very similar case here for Peso Pluma. I do, in fact, love Mexican music. I adore Mexican music. There are loads of artists that I love that make Mexican music, but Peso Pluma, I don't really get, man. His voice is always like really like yelpy and like rah, 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 yeah, 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 like the whole time, and then the instrumentation is like, and every song does the same thing. This is not a great example of what this genre of music has provided over the years. Please dig deeper than Peso Pluma. I promise you, there is better out there. Juice WRLD, Legends Ever Die. This album honestly should not exist. It's a cash grab. I annoyingly didn't mind some of the songs though. I think some of them are actually pretty good. And maybe some of his better tracks. But then there are these really terrible cash grab combinations of like Marshmello coming through. And it's like, this is like horrible in all levels you can think of. Like, they need to stop using his name to drop albums. They've already dropped multiple since he's passed away. We don't need any more. And the fans of him should have more respect for him than letting albums like this become so successful, because they're just going to keep doing it. And he never signed off on any of them. Come on, guys. I'll admit, I actually really liked It's Time. I actually don't mind Radioactive. This is a very hated album. I think, honestly, for their standards, this is the best thing they ever did. When you go later on into their career, it gets really bad. So if you think this is awful, I'd implore you to check out their later albums because there's honestly some pretty decent songs on this. As an overall album, though, I grew out of it. I liked it when I was younger and listening to this at the time. I was a teenager, but nowadays, nah. I'm not that sold on Doja Cat as a rapper. As a pop singer, I think she can be really good, but I still am not massively into a lot of these tracks, particularly on the hooks, like Woman. Not really keen on that chorus. I think she can make a really good pop song when she's really like in her element, but overall, I think she's just fine. I want to like this album a lot more. I think Billie Eilish is a really good singer, and I think honestly, since her newest album came out, it kind of reiterates my thoughts on this album, where she feels really muted. She feels really like holding back, and the songs just sound pretty boring and uninspired to me. But when she lets loose and brings her voice to the front, I mean, you get songs like Birds of a Feather, man. Like, she can do it, but I don't think this album's a great representation of her talents, to be honest. Bad Bunny, I think, can get a bit much and can be a bit grating for too long. And annoyingly, a lot of his albums are that. They're just too long. Like, this one is an hour long. Some of the reggaeton approaches feel a little cheap to me. He has a Drake feature on here. It just kind of feels like he's got more under his belt that he didn't quite show us this early on. There is an album later on that I will praise a lot, though, that kind of proves that he does have it in him. But I don't know, man. This feels a bit much for me. Similar case to this one, kind of everything I said there. And this album's even longer. And like I say, his voice can get really grating when you listen to all the songs back to back. He's better in small doses. And yeah, I don't think he quite mastered it, this sound just yet. At 60, we have Don't Smile at Me, the first ever project from Billie Eilish. It feels like her ideas are kind of warming up on this. I don't feel like we quite had the fleshed out Billie Eilish at this point. A bit surprising as well that I think this is considered an EP, and yet it has so many streams. Kind of insane, but yeah, not really into this one. Sam Smith in The Lonely Hour. There are some pretty nice songs on this album, but I don't know, the kind of ballady type stuff from British singer-songwriters. You have to really grip me, man. You have to really grip me, because honestly, a lot of it just goes in one ear, out the other. Again, some decent songs on this track list, but I don't know. Perhaps controversially quite low, Unorthodox Jukebox. This was where Bruno was trying to infuse different types of genres together, kind of throwing it back to the 80s on some really good songs, actually, like Treasure, for example. And Locked Out of Heaven has that kind of Police vibe to it as well. So there are some good tracks on this one, but there's also Gorilla. And I think for a full project, I don't think it sticks to landing the whole way through. We have Midnights from Taylor Swift, which was the Album of the Year winner for some reason. Um, there are some really good tracks on this album. There are Lavender Haze provides something different for her. I think the producer on that track also worked on some of Kendrick Lamar's stuff, so you can feel that there are some really good moments on here. But yeah, just a lot of basic songwriting, like on Karma and Antihero. I don't know, man. I thought the concept sounded really cool when she advertised it initially, but then you actually listen to the album and there isn't really much to kind of get out of the concept. Fine Line, Harry Styles, one of those albums where the like really good songs are really good, and then the rest of the album is just like bland pop stuff. Like Golden is great. I like Adore You as well. Not a big fan of Watermelon Sugar, but yeah, there are some good songs on this album, but I think from front to back, I don't think it's that great. This one is going to really annoy the hip hop heads, but honestly, 2014 Forest Hills Drive does not wow me in the slightest. I find everything that J. Cole does on this album was basically done better by other rappers at the time. It really befuddles me as to what makes this album so special to so many hip hop heads. You've got like boom bap beats, which at the time other rappers were doing well, and in the 90s they were doing way better as well. You know, like a Joey Badass in the 2010s was doing that type of thing better than J. Cole. He has some kind of banger anthems that I don't think are that great either. And again, other rappers at the time were doing better anthems and bangers as well. He kind of tries to go a little bit hard on some tracks. Don't really find it sells, honestly. His delivery isn't that engaging. His lyrics, again, I think other rappers are better. I'm happy to kick this guy at the big three, honestly. At 54, we have again Taylor Swift with Lover, and it's a very similar case where there are really good tracks. Cruel Summer, the title track, some of her best songs, genuinely. But the rest of the album is padded out with some really mediocre songwriting, some really terrible songs like Me, and then just, I don't know, lots of songwriting that feels very cheap. I'm not really feeling it. Harry's House, a great case of where the singles are all good. The rest of the album, who's listening to Cinema, man? I don't know. I don't get it. I'm not feeling it at all. But yeah, Late Night Talking, as it was, really good pop tunes, like the 80s vibe, like the kind of Paul Simon vibe he's going for on those tracks. But I don't know. The rest of the album, yeah, again, it's just a similar case of it just being kind of eh. This is the highest you will see Post Malone feature on my list, and I think honestly it is his best work, but it's still a Post Malone hip hop album. There's still lots of tracks that don't have great bars, don't have the best production. There were better artists doing trap at the time, looking at somebody like a Future, Young Thug, of course. There were better rappers doing pop rap, honestly, at the time, but I think he did still nail it with quite a few of these tracks, particularly Better Now, which I think is honestly one of his best ever songs. Ariana Grande's Dangerous Woman, which has one of her best songs ever on it by a large distance, Into You. I think that song is fantastic. Absolutely incredible production on there from Max Martin. And again, it's a case of really, for me, Ariana's kind of more a greatest hits type artist. I will pick and choose lots of great songs from her and happily put them on a playlist. But for a whole album, I don't know, not really feeling it. And there's nothing dangerous about this album either. I know it's like a bit of a cheap shot, but really, we're in the top 50 now, and this is the highest ranked Drake album out of the entire top 100. I would still probably say Take Care is his best album. That doesn't rank in the top 100 just yet, although it is creeping up, so soon I think it might be in the top 100 all time. But yeah, I mean, this is okay. It's kind of what you expect. He labeled it a playlist album, so as with playlists, you're going to get songs that you like and songs that you don't. He's kind of like selling it as exactly what you'd expect, really. Another annoying thing that we saw in the streaming era, artists kind of branding things in annoying ways. Drake was really one of the kind of pioneers of that. Lots of songs that I do think are really good. Passion Through is great. I think the track with Young Thug is really good too. But yeah, mostly hit and miss. Very much what I've said already about Ariana Grande. I find some of her songs to be really hit and miss, but there's always some really, really good songs on each of her albums. 25 for me was the point where I realised, and maybe others did too, that Adele was a bit of a one-trick pony. She kind of felt like she was repeating things that we'd seen on 21. The stylistic shift, I don't think, was really anywhere near big enough to warrant the massive success and the huge sales this album got. I thought Hello was an incredibly dull and dire song, but When We Were Young is definitely one of her best tracks. That is a really fantastic ballad. I just think, yeah, she's kind of become a bit of just a vocalist. You get amazing vocals, but the rest of the track can sometimes just be a bit bland. I think there's better soul music out there. Seven Rings is a pure hate crime against music, but the rest of the album is alright. I think there's some really great tracks on here. I think Bad Idea is probably one of her better tracks. The title track's catchy too. Don't really like Break Up With Your Girlfriend, I'm Bored. I think that's a pretty lame song. And given some of the headlines that have come out about her, maybe not too morally good looking back, eh? But yeah, again, I kind of keep repeating myself with Ariana. Album-wise, I don't think she's really done much exciting music, but singles-wise, I think she's usually really, really top-notch. And one interesting thing about this album, all the singles are right at the end of it. Most pop albums have all the singles at the start. This album has them all at the end. Not really got anything to do with the quality of the album, but I thought it was an interesting thing that I didn't remember. Bad Bunny, again, I'm just like repeating myself with a lot of this, man. I'm bored. I'm saying the same things. The same artists are popping up. Literally, like, the majority of this list is just dominated by the same 10 artists. And it's like, all right, they've got some good songs, they've got some good albums. Well, let's like chill. Like the Bad Bunny is not like an old timer in music. Why has he got like 10 albums in this friggin' list? It's just like the same kind of Latin pop stuff you get. It's one of his better ones, I would say, but still too long, too repetitive. Not really into it. For a pop soul album, I guess you can't go too wrong with this, but it is pretty bog standard stuff. It's a bit bland. The production isn't the most exciting. And if we're being really honest, I think Take Me to Church has really carried the streams for this album. I don't think it would be really anywhere near it without that one song. And yeah, I think Hosier does have talent. I think his albums post this one were definitely better. Wasteland Baby, I do think is a good album. And there are some really good bluesy elements on this album, particularly with Jackie and Wilson. That's a great song. But it's okay, not too mad at it. I can understand why somebody would love it, but yeah, I think I prefer my pop soul a little bit more exciting than this. Sour is interesting because this is a huge debut album for the 2020s and really relatable for the audience that she was clearly making the music for. Outside of that, I find this album is really not for me, but it's obviously not for me. And I personally prefer my music a little bit grittier. I think the ballads are a bit bland. I think the writing is very clearly written by a teenager. It's not bad, but I think Guts was definitely an improvement on what she was doing. I think the maturity will come and the music will get even better with her. And by the way, Deja Vu, that's a great track. Something people don't talk about with this album is how obviously influenced he was by 2010s R&B at the time. Like he was really riffing on the Weeknd's R&B stuff or Bryson Tiller's R&B stuff for a lot of these tracks. The singles weren't quite like that. Obviously, they're a bit more upbeat and up-tempo. I think What Do You Mean is really catchy. But yeah, I think this is kind of the best it gets for Justin Bieber. I think he's limited for his overall talents because he's a really basic songwriter. His vocals are good, obviously, but I think this is really the highest I could ever put a Justin Bieber album. So take that for what you will. I think for the trap era, this might be one of the more overrated albums. I hate using that word, but I think when you see people talking about this, people really refer to it as being like the trap Bible and a modern trap classic. I think there were better albums at the time, but those albums that are better don't have EXO Tour Life. That is an all-timer right there. I don't think there's ever been a song that sounded like it since. I don't think Lil Uzi Vert could ever replicate the vibe and the atmosphere of that song, but I don't think the rest of this album lives up to the brilliance of that track. It's okay. Now, speaking of artists that put all their eggs in the singles basket, Katy Perry is the top prime suspect for that. The singles are really fun. But the rest of the album, you can skip, honestly. The deep cuts are not that good. And honestly, even the singles, like, I don't really like Firework that much, but the title track, Teenage Dream, that is an all-timer pop song right there. Similar to what I said with Katy Perry, Rihanna is also a singles specialist. She wasn't really about making great albums in the 2000s. It was all about the really fun, catchy pop tunes that would hit the clubs, hit the radio. It wasn't about the album. So maybe no surprise that you're going to sit through this and not really get much outside of the really great singles. But yeah, for me, as somebody that's, talking about the quality of the overall album, I can't put this any higher, but still, it's at 40 out of 100. So actually, in fairness, it's not done too bad. Crossing over into that pop stardom was a little shaky initially, in my opinion, for The Weeknd. It provided some great songs like Can't Feel My Face, but the entire album seemed a little bit like he was trying to hold on to the trilogy days and a little bit trying to be a pop star. He perfected it later on, but I don't think this was the point where he perfected it. Eminem's taste levels are not that great. His ear for production is pretty bland and white bread, to be honest with you. I think, honestly, if Dr. Dre handled more of the production on this album, it would have sounded a lot better. Some of these tracks are really aged now, like Sing for the Moment, which I think is terrible. I don't even think the beat on Till I Collapse has aged all that well either, so I'm a little bit surprised to see that it's become one of the biggest songs on Spotify in the 2020s when this is a 23-year-old album. The highs are incredible. Do not get me wrong. The highs are fantastic. Without Me is special. But as an entire album for an hour and 20 minutes, I don't think the production is good enough to really keep me engaged. Actually, a little solid Latin pop album here, which I've been dunking a little bit on Bad Bunny so far in this series, but this is pretty good. As is this Karol G album too. I don't think I've ever met a Khalid fan in real life. Like, I've never met anybody that loves this guy's music, and yet he seems to do really well on streaming. So they exist somewhere. I just don't seem to come across them. But honestly, I reviewed this at the time when it came out. I've always thought it was pretty good. Really like Young, Dumb and Broke. I really like Your Location. It's a solid pop R&B album. I don't think this guy is really sticking around in the mainstream now, but for the time he was here, I enjoyed it, man. I can't lie. Some really great tracks on this album. Industry Baby's fun. Montero Calling Me by Your Name's fun. Yeah, this was good for its time. I don't know if it's going to age amazingly, but it was fun. I mentioned already with Juice WRLD that his albums can be hit and miss, but this was the peak of his powers, really, and he had the full artistic license. It wasn't some like nonsense cash grabby posthumous albums. These were all placed on the album, which he had full control over. And yeah, this was really the best it ever got for him, I think. Lucid Dreams is an all-time emo rap song. Very tough to follow up what is very easily his best album still, Rodeo. Somehow Rodeo is not in the top 100 of all time, though, and literally every other album of his is in the top 100. But Buzz in the Trap Sing McKnight was cool. It felt like a step down, though. Apart from Goosebumps, I don't think any other song really lives up to what was the fantastic album that is Rodeo. And at number 31, we have Short and Sweet by Sabrina Carpenter, one of the newer pop girls to really make a splash and become a bit of a mainstay. Some of the tracks on this album are really fun, they're really airy, they're really breezy, they're really enjoyable. I think some of her lyrics come across as a bit goofy, and on the new album that's just come out as of recording this as well, they're even worse than that one, but they're a little bit tame at times. I think she's trying a little bit hard to be like a mean girl type character, and some of the more like sexual lyrics are a bit cringe, but again, on the new album it's even worse than this one. But yeah, really like Juno, really like Espresso, some really good tracks on here. You can't really go wrong for just a solid pop summary album. 30, I've got 17, which is a very polarizing album and one that people seem to think is like the most versatile thing in the world, and then others that think it's absolutely terrible. Sometimes the truth's in the middle. I think this is actually okay. I think there were signs of pretty interesting ideas coming through, some really interesting genre blends. Jocelyn Flores, you've got Revenge. I do think there are some good tracks on this album. What holds it back for me is how ridiculously short and scant a lot of the songs are. It feels like they're not fully finished at times, and also his writing, it was really cringe, it was really, really corny, and he definitely needed to mature to really iron that out. But I think it's okay for what we got. We do have Bad Bunny in the more positive range. I have already critiqued how sometimes his albums can be really long and they can feel a little samey. I do think there's a bit more variety of beats and ideas coming through on this one. It definitely still runs a bit too long, which is why I think it holds it back from being higher. But we do have one more Bad Bunny album to rank, and that is the one where I feel like he came into his own, but we'll get to that. The signs of Travis Scott kind of feeling like he's getting a little lazier with his ideas, things feeling like they're running thin a little bit, have definitely started to show on this album. However, we cannot take away from the amazing tracks that live on this, man. Hyena, I Know, My Eyes, yeah. Thank God's good too. Like, there's so many good tracks. It just feels like now, Travis Scott, particularly with the Jack Boys 2 album, he's running things a little thin. I hope he can bounce back though, but yeah, it's still decent. For a debut album from a teenager, this is remarkably creative. Like, I don't think we will really ever see such a bold mainstream debut from such a young person in the next however many years. This was a breath of fresh air at the time, honestly. There's some really great, unique ideas that float on this album. Have they aged all that well? I don't know. I think some of these tracks are starting to sound a little dated, which is weird because it is only 6 years old. But I still commend her for daring to do this. It's really, really unique. There are some really fantastic pop songs on here, man. Like, you've got Lost in Your Light, you've got Be the One, which I still think is her best song ever. There are some weaker tracks, though. I'm not really the biggest fan of New Rules or Hotter Than Hell, but overall, I think it's a pretty good, solid pop album. For a debut as well, you can't really go wrong with some of these tracks. A very iconic album for the Kerrang era, man. This album had the hits, this album had the alternative rock fans just glued. They had it. They had them, man. They had them at the palm of their hands, and honestly, it is pretty good. I think some of the elements do feel a little dated. I do think some of that kind of like hip hop rock crossover doesn't always work perfectly well on this album, but when it works, I think it really works so well. And tracks like One Step Closer, in the end, they're pretty timeless for this genre. Lady Gaga's The Fame Monster did feel like a breath of fresh air at its time. There were some really unique tracks on this album that felt incredibly bold, and again, similar to Billie Eilish, like not many other people were really making pop like this at the time. It was a massive game changer, honestly, and yeah, to be fair, I think it deserves to be in the top 100. It's a good album. It's got some iconic songs on it. You can't really go wrong with it. Now that she bought back her masters, I'm finally glad to see people admit that the original Red is definitely better than this version, man. That was a tedious time, my friends. That was rough, but it still is the same album. It just doesn't sound as good in places. Like, there are drums on State of Grace don't sound quite as good. Like, just little details that I just don't think are as good as the original Red. The original Red I would probably put maybe in the top 10. I think it's a really good album from Taylor Swift. This one drops a little bit lower just because of those details not feeling the same. That charm's not quite there. The production quality just isn't the same. It doesn't feel the same, but it's still good. Definitely runs too long, but there are some really great tracks on here. And honestly, as well, Control is still better. Like, I don't know why this is the one that took off for her, but it's still good. Still got some really great songs on F2F, Snooze. She has added Lana as a deluxe edition, so it's contributing to the streams. It feels a little cheaty to do that. But like I say, lots of odd, quirky tactics in the streaming era that I'm not too much of a fan of. But you really can't go wrong with this, honestly. Some really good alternative pop tunes, R&B tunes. It's good. And at 21, just outside the top 20, we do have Arctic Monkeys with AM. That sleazy leather jacket coolness seems to have made this album such a trendy, beloved album. I still think it's good. I think, Do I Want to Know, Are You Mine are great tracks. But I just think when you compare it to their first two, those are the albums that really should have rocketed it up into stardom like this one. I do think there are some kind of weak moments on here that I don't really feel like I ever want to go back to, but it's a solid little rock album. And I do kind of miss these days of Arctic Monkeys, especially where we've ended up coming now. It's just nowhere near as enjoyable. At number 20, we do have 1989 from Taylor Swift, which has some all-time Taylor Swift songs on here. I think Blank Space is really good. I think Style is fantastic. I think I Know Places is one of her most underrated and best songs. It does have Shake It Off and Bad Blood, though. Not really keen on those, so it's a bit of a mixed bag in terms of like the highs being super high but the lows being pretty low. But overall, it is a good Taylor Swift album. You can't deny that. At number 19, I think this is a peak of what Billie Eilish and Phineas have done so far. I think this culminates everything that they've been trying to do. It's got some of the quirkier, stranger production with also some of the more elegant and lush sounds that she's been kind of toying with, and it brings out some of her best ever songs. Chihiro is fantastic. Birds of a Feather might be an all-timer pop song at this point. Like, that is one of the best pop songs of the decade so far. I think that song's amazing. Her vocals are really starting to shine through now. I think it's a really good album from her, and I think it's only going to get better from here too. I know people are going to think this is low, but I'm dying on the hill, man. I think God, Loyalty are some of Kendrick's worst ever songs, but simultaneously, it has some of his best ever songs here as well. DNA, Fear is amazing. The writing on Fear is outrageously good. I also love Pride. Like, XXX is really good as well. I think in the context of this top 100, this has to be ranked high because the top 100 is so poor. But for Kendrick standards, I do think he's put out much better albums. I really do. I really, really stand by that. I think still it shoots for something really impressive. It has some really amazing lyrical ideas because it's Kendrick Lamar. but the quality of the music isn't always there. Next, I got Heroes and Villains from Metro Boomin, basically the peak of Metro Boomin's powers. I'm not quite sure he'll ever be able to replicate something like this again. All of the features are really on point. They're all doing a really good job of matching Metro Boomin's moody production. There's also some really great beats across this as well. Yeah, I think this is really the peak of his powers. Also, potentially the peak of Taylor Swift's powers. I think in terms of songwriting, this is her best album. There's just so many really interesting and detailed songs across this album. It doesn't stray into like the Tortured Poets over the top too much writing that album did. It's a nice fine line between some of her more pop stuff and then blending in with that kind of folky production as well, with the Aaron Dessner type national sort of dreary production coming through as well. It all works nicely. It's really well written. It's good. I've already said that Rihanna isn't much of an album's artist, but this is the one exception to that rule. Auntie is really good. You've got Consideration on here. You've got Kiss It Better, which I think is fantastic. The guitar on that is roaring, man. It sounds so good. The production across all this album is really impressive. You got kind of like that glitchiness, the psychedelicness-ish of Needed Me. You've got the Tame Impala cover, which is a great cover. You've got Love on the Brain, which is one of her most impressive vocal performances. I'd even go as far as saying that Work with Drake got a bit too much hate. I kind of like that song, but yeah, I think this is a good album. I have been slandering Bruno throughout this, admittedly, but like I said, when he started like ripping off the 70s, bro, this guy made some tunes. Once Uptown Funk came around, this guy changed the game of his entire career trajectory and part of some of his best work, man. I do have a lot of fun with this album. It's very much like rich people kind of bragging about how luxurious their lifestyle is. Not always fully keen on the lyrics, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a shame Silk Sonic doesn't have this same love, though, because I'd love to see that in the top 100. That's easily Bruno's best one. Adele, 21. Not really surprising that this is here. Kind of just the album that everybody already knows is good. I can't really add to the conversation. I think production-wise, it's her most exciting album, though. There's a lot more variation on this album than there was on like 25 or 30, which I find start to get a little bit boring, get a little bit bland in terms of their style. But yeah, like Rolling in the Deep, man, so good. Born to Die, a game-changing album for alt pop in the 2010s. It becomes a little bit overlooked for how much this album influenced a whole new generation of musicians that clearly tried to replicate this style. And the album itself, yeah, it's influential, but it lives up to the quality too. Like, there's some really great tracks on here. Born to Die, Blue Jeans, Video Games, all some of her best songs. I would even dare to say this still probably is her best album. I know a lot of people love Boulevard and people love NFR. I get it. But I think production-wise, I think this captured the essence of what she was trying to do the best. And just outside the top 10, I've got The Weeknd, Starboy. I think this album is full of a lot of exciting pop R&B crossovers that The Weeknd was starting to perfect with his sound. You've got Starboy on here, you've got I Feel It Coming, you've got False Alarm, Lonely Night. There's a lot of fun tracks on here. There's a little bit of filler though. I think there's a few too many tracks maybe towards the end that could maybe be taken out, but I still think it's a quality release from The Weeknd. Going big and going early with this album, this is the newest album to enter the top 100 of all time on Spotify. It only came out in January this year. So putting it in the top 10 already seems to be a bit of a bold move, but I stand by it. I think this is a very strong Bad Bunny album. I think it has some of his best ever songs on here. I think the appreciation for Puerto Rican culture and the traditional Latin sounds that come through that also are blended in with the modern reggaeton sounds are really cool. I think it's a really great combination of elements. You can clearly see in interviews how much love and appreciation he has for those classic sounds of the genre, and it comes through perfectly on this album. Some great songs. At number 9, we have The Weeknd again with After Hours. He's ranking high and deservedly so. This album is recognizable for those major hits such as Save Your Tears. You've got Blinding Lights, which was massive, obviously, but don't sleep on those deeper cuts as well. Hardest to Love, Escape from LA, the Heartless After Hours title track. Like, there are so many good songs here. The Weeknd is hitting at such a high average. Yeah, it's got to be in the top 10. Astro World from Travis Scott. Again, I will still stand by Rodeo being his best album, but this album creates a really unique soundscape and atmosphere and its own world within the album itself. It kind of comes close to Rodeo in that sense, but again, so many fun, enjoyable tracks with so many great features that come through on this album. Love songs like Coffee Bean, Sicko Mode obviously is a great one, Stargazing, lots of really all-timer, like modern trap psychedelic fused songs on this album here. At number 7, I've got Linkin Park's Meteora. I think it's their most defined work ever. I think it tidies up some of the minor things I had a problem with on Hybrid Theory, and yeah, some of the tracks just hit really hard. Figure Point oh 09, I think Numb is fantastic as well. Faint, that is such a hard hitting banger, man. Somewhere I Belong, yeah, the whole album's got so many exciting rock tracks from the 2000s. It's aged really well. At number 6, we've got the seminal album from Frank Ocean, Blonde. I think it's remarkable that an R&B album from the 2010s that didn't have any charting hits or radio hits or mega viral songs during the release of this album is in the top 100 of all time. It just goes to show how much dedication and love people can have for an album can really push it up this high, because this is often talked about as one of the best albums of all time. And looking at the rest of the top 100, not many albums in this top 100 can have that kind of claim to fame. Like, nowhere near, honestly. Ivy, Pink and White, Self Control. Oh my God, White Ferrari. Just Nights. Are you kidding me? Amazing songs on this thing, man. It easily is in the top 10. I would find it very hard to believe it being ranked any lower than that for anybody's list. This is a bit of a rogue shout, but I'm standing by it, man. Number 5, I've got Dua Lipa's Future Nostalgia. This is pop banger after pop banger after pop banger. If you played this album for somebody that had never heard any of the songs, they wouldn't be able to guess which one were the singles and which ones weren't. They all sound like hit songs. They all sound like they were in the charts. It just doesn't let up. The disco influences, the dance pop influences. It's like a Kylie Minogue album from the 2000s where it's just like there are no skips, there are no filler tracks, there are no misses. Well, Boys Will Be Boys, but we don't talk about that one. The whole album is so much fun. I think it'll be very hard for Dua Lipa to ever replicate this again. It's a really, really exciting pop album. I'm standing by it being this high. At number 4, Nevermind. Come on, man. Like, come on, really? Do I even have to say anything about this one? It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Come on. We stray further and further away every day from the greatest moments that Kanye West ever gave us. With each passing day, with each passing quote, with each passing album, we are just further and further away from God. Like, Graduation is hit after hit, man. Just a flawlessly executed pop rap album. It redefined what hip hop could be. Everything after this changed. What an album, man. Just so good. Like Champion, Good Morning, I Wonder, Flashing Lights. Oh my goodness, what an album. Number 2, Rumors. Yeah, another album really where it's like, what else is there to say about this? I can't really add to the conversation. Everybody said everything they can. A defining classic rock album of the 70s. Dreams caught a bit of a viral moment a few years ago, which is why this album's shot up into the top 100, which is really cool to see. Yeah, it's like, what can I really say? It's an amazing album. But very easily my number 1 that I had no real debate in my mind about. As soon as I looked at the top 100, I saw this there and I was like, nothing's topping this. And yeah, nothing could and won't. Good Kid, Mad City. Arguably not even Kendrick's best album, but it's just that good that it has to be this high. This is remarkable. It's got an incredible story that's woven in throughout. Great production that you'd think would be dated because it's 13 years old, and there are some kind of like classic 2010s production tropes that are on this album, and yet none of it really feels dated. Everything feels so perfectly executed. You've got Money Trees, which sounds as good as it ever did. Mad City, Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst, which is one of the best written rap songs ever. incredible stuff here, man. An amazing story. Kendrick Lamar is one of the best to ever do it, and easily the best album in the top 100 all-time streamed albums on the Spotify list. Easy. And that is it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this. I know this has been pretty long, but I hope you stuck around. I hope you agree with my picks, and I hope you understand my ranking here as well. How would you rank the entire top 100 list of the all-time streamed albums on Spotify? Would you do it differently to me? Would you do it similarly to me? Let me know, and make sure you're following for more. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've stuck around. Have a good day. Goodbye.